Hi guys, now we're gonna talk about the history of decentralization. So it's not only cryptocurrency, it's not only blockchain that started the decentralization as it is, but decentralization and distributed networks have been created long ago, so in the beginning of the century, and there are many protocols that existed before blockchain, before Bitcoin was created, and now I'm gonna show you one of them. This is called BitTorrent, one of the most popular. So you need to know that the digital world and IT world, web, consists of protocols. Protocols is the way of transferring the data. Transferring the data is one of the biggest challenges for IT world, because the data can be transferred differently, and to do that we have protocols. If you remember HTTP protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, in your browser, in your address line, so that you can see, or maybe you have heard about FTP, file transfer protocol, which is more convenient for sharing files, if you heard of it. So there are many ways of transferring the data, but most of them are centralized from server to clients. So client-server communication, this is the typical and the most popular. But as for decentralization, there is another computer-to-computer way to transfer the data, to share the information. So let's talk about it. So BitTorrent is one of the first protocols and one of the most popular protocols that was created at the beginning of the century. And this protocol is based mainly on peer-to-peer file sharing. That means that computer from computer file sharing instead of the central server. So this is the first swallow that goes in the world of decentralization, when Bitcoin was not already created, but there were some protocols that were decentralized, truly decentralized, and they transferred the data, especially large amounts of data, which helped to avoid big servers and maintenance of those big servers. So file sharing between people. So that was just in the beginning of the internet era, when internet was starting to spread across the world, even before social networks appeared, before Facebook. So this protocol already existed in the world. So it was invented by Bram Cohen, and released in 2001. So that's a remarkable event, and we didn't know at that time how the approach, this decentralized approach, can influence the future. So this guy has made great impact on the future, so to say. And maybe Satoshi Nakamoto, I can presume that Satoshi Nakamoto was inspired by that idea as well, of not transferring the data between computers, but transferring so the data can be different, and the data, money, is also data in digital world. Let's go further. It is used, of course, for most popular purpose of that protocol was to distribute the entertainment content, so music, movies, podcasts, and so on. So what people liked, what people need. So don't forget that early in 2000, it was very an analog era. We remember compact disc, even cassettes with tape. So that was the time when we didn't and couldn't transfer the files through internet like we do now. and it was a great challenge. Even the access to the internet was provided through telephone, landline phone. You remember that, DSL modems and so that. And for commercial use, which we don't really know, it was used for game patching systems, for programs like Linux and many others. So that was used in a narrow sphere at that time. But for users, of course, it was important to share music, movies, and many people have created even local networks, if you remember, between several blocks of houses in the district. They created the lines through the courts, through the lines, and they exchanged files, movies, films across several blocks of houses in the district. That was remarkable, and it was really fun. If you remember that time, and if you used that service, that kind of service. So let's go to the architecture, how it works. So seeds are people who distribute the content. So imagine you have the file you host at your local computer, and you start distributing this file to other computers. So the most important thing here, that you don't distribute the whole file as one file. You distribute it by parts, and you just share. For example, you turn on your computer and you share some part of the files, and then you close your computer because you don't need it, you don't work with it, or you went out with it, you moved. So the rest of the peers, another peers, are sharing this file with the one who gets it. So in the distributed network, it's very important that there are many seeds, many people seeding or distributing the file. That's the point. Otherwise, the users can't get it without many users seeding or sharing it. So peers are downloading the files and distribute to other peers through the special software. This is BitTorrent Tracker, one of the most important and one of the most popular trackers in this market. So they see what parts of the file are available and download it. It's not done through web browser, it's done through special software. If you used it, you know how it works, you can see how it works. So let's sum it up with the architecture. So trackers are the special programs, software that allow organizing this process of seeding and receiving the files. So they delegate and transfer speeds. Then they ban users, of course, if somebody is breaking the rules or sharing wrong content or sharing abuse content. So they block, of course, this content, and they verify the available content between different peers, because peers don't know by default what's happening on the other computer. As you don't know what's happening on my computer, which files are stored, which files can be shared, so you need to view it, so to say. This functions as a backend server, but it doesn't keep the files, and that makes it more simple, and that makes it not so expensive. Because if you store the file like YouTube, why YouTube is so powerful? Because they store lots of file in the centralized servers, big data centers that are built by Google, and they are maintained and stored at Google. and shared, of course. They don't distribute them, the files like that. We are getting the files from YouTube directly, and this makes it very expensive, and nobody can compete with YouTube like that, because the costs for infrastructure is great, and no other rivals or competitors like Vimeo or other competitors cannot reach the level that the powerful corporation Google has got. So, but the trackers can do that in a special way. So, distributed hash table, DHT, so to say. You don't need to remember this term. So this is the picture that shows how you are getting the file. So you are in the middle here, and there are many peers who store the files you need. So some of them can store not the full file, like here they can store some parts of the file. They're like you just downloading to your computer, and at the same time you can download from them what parts they already have at their computers. So you are getting from multiple peers the pieces, and collecting the whole file from pieces from another computers. So that's the miracle about how decentralized file sharing works, and this is a unique protocol that gives and inspires other decentralized services that we're gonna speak about later. So as I told you, the costs for servers is very low, the security is higher, the privacy is higher, so everything is better, and you don't need to run the centralized server, which is very expensive. So I can imagine and compare that this is like the news or gossip spreading across the village. So everybody knows something. One set of group of people, group of people just finding out the news, and they're spreading the news across all the village or small town. But here they are spreading the files, and they can't change them. If in the gossip you can just distort the information, and in the end it can be a little bit different than it was initially communicated. But here in the digital world, those parts are not changeable, and those parts stay as they are in the original. So of course there were some problems with BitTorrent. The weak thing here is people need not only to get files but share files. If you downloaded the files, turned off your computer, that means you don't share with others. So they are called leechers, and they just use the bandwidth, use the files, and do not contribute to the community. So the torrent file, this is the file that the initial file that shares, that gives us the links to the peers. This is not the file with the content, with the movie, music, or whatever. This is the torrent file that gives us addresses, and it cannot be actual if all the peers turn off their computers. That means the sharing, the process is stopped. So it can be compared like you turn off the central server. If nobody shares, nobody gets it. So it's logical. As soon as this network is available, it is actual. So this is the weak point, but it's natural for this architecture. And of course, so we can't avoid the topic of copywriting. So copywriting is the topic that's important, and in many countries the content can be illegal. Of course, you need to be attentive with it. In European countries, it is forbidden even to use torrent trackers and to share files with the others. So we must be attentive with that and follow the rules. But the purpose of our video today is to understand that the idea of decentralization worked before, even before the Bitcoin was created. So it's not only about money, it's about services. So that's the risk, and of course there are many software producers, creators, many of them. So this is quite natural. So to wrap it up, let's give the conclusion to what we have. So BitTorrent is the protocol like FTP, file transfer protocol, or hypertext transfer protocol, HTTP, which you heard about in the address line in your browser. So this is a revolutionary technology in the beginning of the century that was created to share the data. This is the new approach that allows computer-to-computer file sharing and creating distributed networks. We will talk about distributed networks in future. So this is the pre-released of decentralized finance that we are talking about currently most of all. But if we know such background, we will have a better understanding how the distributed networks and decentralized networks are working. Of course, the notion of decentralization is relative. We can't have full decentralization. This is we are going to it, and there's a long way ahead of it. But this is the right direction, and now I have explained to you how it started, how it started to be implemented at the dawn of internet, in the beginning of the internet. So so that's the purpose of that video. Hope you liked it. Thank you very much for watching.